Hey everyone, welcome to the Grinding Station. Here, we will be discussing our tournament grinds, our experiences within the format, and all things CEDH. We're your hosts. I'm C9 River,
And I'm Morgan.
and today we are joined by one of our very, very close friends, Matt, who is coming off of a spectacular win from a tournament we recently just attended. And by we, I mean Morgan and Matt, because I attended, I just didn't play. Um, it was a really good time. Really enjoyed the vibes, but we're here to talk about Matt's big win and some other random stuff we decided to talk about. So, with that said, Morgan, would you like to introduce Matt anymore?
Yeah, Matt is a person from my personal play group. We've been playing together for almost 2 years now, 2.5, something like that.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. He actually started playing Magic when we were getting into the CDH and just hopped into CDH with us. So this is his first format he's ever played. It's really cool to see him get better over time. So
Yeah, I saw you guys play Magic. I saw an ad nauseum happen. I thought, oh, I want to do that, and now that's what I'm doing.
yep, sure is. All right, Matt. So we both played an event up in Lafayette, and you won. What did you walk away with?
I walked away with a light play Volcanic Island.
Not bad, not bad.
Not bad at all.
Last weekend, I also know that you won a Scrubland. So, coming off
Yeah,
the back of 2 really good weeks, how you feeling?
yeah, I'm ready to keep on collecting dual lands and hopefully finish my deck up.
Yeah.
Hey, the Thanos of the CEDH community. We got right.
Hopefully.
Everyone's Thanos at one point. You're like, oh, I just need one more.
Just one more.
So, walk us through your round one. How did your round one go?
I thought I was going to lose that round. It was rough. I couldn't really get well off the ground. I was playing with Morgan.
Wait, before we go too much further. What deck did you play?
Oh, the old classic blue farm.
Okay. Yeah, I know that, but
Yeah. Yeah, the first round I was on blue farm. You were on Thrasios File Smasher.
Yeah.
We had a Crick player, and I think it was another blue farm
yeah, it
player.
was another blue farm. You were first seat, correct?
I thought you were first. No, I was fourth seat.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
I was fourth seat all day.
Holy.
I don't think I went once that day. It was pretty rough, but I had a hard time getting off the ground. I felt like, at least the other blue farm player was drawing a lot of cards. You sat there off one with a no lander turn one.
No, I had a land. I pitched to a Mox Diamond.
Oh yeah, that's there it was. And then Crick decided to try to win turn two under an opposition agent.
Yeah. It was rough.
Yeah, it turns out Doomsday is a library search. He didn't think it was at first. So
yeah, that was rough. That was rough to watch. It was so sad.
Yeah, I was real worried whenever the other blue farm player got 5 cards out of Crick's library. I was thinking, oh, he's just got the win here, but
He did not.
he did not.
It's rough
I personally,
because that was his first event too.
yeah, some of his choices I understood, but I feel like if you were getting temporary cards, you would want to make the most out of them instantly, especially with that player going to be out of the game next turn because he had no library anymore.
Yeah, it was rough. It was unfortunate.
The player in question, his name's Tandem. He's actually from the Terra Hope playgroup, and he's super new into CDH. He actually comes from a competitive Yu-Gi-Oh background, so he's kind of like
really?
dabbling. Yeah, he's dabbling in our format, and we've had a few talks before. He loves like picking my brain, talking about CDH. I obviously never shut up about it. And one of the things that he's told me is that like a lot of his decisions, even if they seem bad, from like an outsider perspective, it's a decision that he thinks is correct in the moment. But he's like a player that he does really well with learning. So like he learns the hard way. I remember we had a game, or just a practice game, and he straight up, he went to do something, and I was like, "Hey, I'm telling you, you can't win here. I'm gonna stop you from winning, and we're gonna lose." And he was like, "Yeah, I don't know if I believe you." And so he did the thing, learned I don't bluff. And after he talked to me, he's like, "Well, now I know you don't bluff. Like, I know that if you make a comment, you mean it, and I'm gonna listen to you." But he's a pretty good player. He's been piloting Blue Farm as his starter deck, basically. Kind of excited to see where he goes with it, but yeah, it's definitely rough. I'm actually glad he came out though, because I keep telling people you're gonna learn more in these events than you are like in your local play groups. So
Exactly. I think
Oh, absolutely.
I don't learn anything about a deck until I play it in an actual event where there are stakes, because I don't take it as seriously. It's just a mental thing. I have to have something on the line for me to like get there with it. But every big level up moment I've had has come from playing in an event and then me realizing something after that event. So it's definitely a very important thing to start playing and just keep getting better.
So Matt, how did you end up winning that game? How'd you end up pulling that out?
Oh, I swung 7 damage at Morgan and 2 at Blue Farm, and
Yeah, it was
that's
just
it.
combat.
It was just combat.
It was
It was
one of
just-
those games. We all just hit each other down to a bunch to really low.
Yeah, it was a slog.
Yeah. I tried to
It
win,
was.
but
Yeah, you had a really good win attempt. It was well timed.
yeah, it was well timed. I felt my win attempt was well timed. I didn't think Blue Farm had any interaction. I think I drew him the Forcible with my win attempt, which is really unfortunate.
He had it in his hand.
Oh, he did. I don't.
Yeah.
I don't think he had the blue card to pitch. I don't think he had Force Blue card.
That might have been what it was, but he.
I didn't put him on any interaction. That mentally, I was like, oh, he doesn't have any interaction. If he draws, he draws. I have to take my chance here because I'm dead on board. So
Right.
I instep. There's a dress down on my turn. I instep Court of Calling after the dress down's gone. Go get Thoracle. I have Tainted Pact in my hand because I tutor with a Wish Claw. So I just put it out there. I was like, if you got it, you got it. And then I ended up getting Force Will, which is fine. I mean, it's part of it.
Yeah, I had nothing for it. I thought, oh, he's got this. That was really well timed. I tried to dress down on the other players in step to get it during your turn, but
Yeah, my
Just-
plan, I was counting that entire time. I was like, can I do the Thoracle thing yet? That was literally all my math was.
Yeah. I remember walking over and spectating every once in a while, because that's all I did this event was spectate. And I remember looking over, and I at one point made the comment, "Oh, cool, Morgan has lands now," and then walked away.
I didn't have a land
Yeah.
for 5 turns. I was just stuck on 3 mana. I kept a really risky 6 that would have, if I drew any mana source, if it was any, like a Soul Ring or any other like 0-drop rock, I had a turn 1 ring because I had Mana Crypt, Mox Time, and Land to Pitch. So, I was like, oh, that's just solid. If I draw a 2-mana rock, I can play the 2-mana rock and then turn 2 1 ring. And then I ended up getting punished and not drawing any mana rocks or any mana sources. So, it's tough.
Well, with round 1 out of the way, then, how did your round 2 go, Matt?
well, I was about to start round 2. Another one of the players in the pod, someone we know, T-Bone, came up to me and asked me if I wanted to just draw out the round so we all get points. And we talked to each of the other players in the pod, and they all didn't immediately say, "Oh no," and the other players seemed like I thought that was a good idea, so we just drew it out.
This is a note right now. The points for this event were very odd. a win was 3 points and a draw was 2. So it was almost determined who was in the top pod after round 1, which is really, really unfortunate.
Yeah, it was the same pod that drew. All 4 of us made it to the top 4 off of that.
Yeah.
Which, it sucks, but I mean that's how that event was ran. We all picked up. We made sure they knew that we didn't like that for sure. And
Yeah, we took them out back and we beat them.
for real.
Yeah, for real. No, it was definitely something that happened. None of us were upset about the draw, honestly. It felt bad. Obviously, it's in their best interest to do that. None of us are blaming them for that. I want to make that very clear that is not, at least from what I heard or what I have said, make very clear that like nobody has any hate towards these players for doing this. Again, it's a tournament. This is your best chance of making top cut. They did. They're all really good players, so I respect the decision. It happens. This is just an aside to TOs. If you're gonna host events, make sure you don't make your draw points very close to your win points because it disincentivizes you to ever play a game. If people had known about the draw points, it actually makes more sense for everyone to draw every round because 2 points guarantees means there's a random top 4. A lot of people didn't realize that, but a lot of us didn't know how the point system was going to work, so it happens. It's something that I think I will be reaching out to the TO and having a conversation about. I think there's definitely a way to fix this. Even if you did this specific point system, there's a way to fix this through another way of pairings with players. So it just depends on what TOs want to do. I hope that the rules stay consistent, as this was the 3rd tournament this event has held or this TO has held that has had a different point system or structure or whatever rule set than the other ones that they held. So I kind of hard to prep for these types of things, but it's that happened. Obviously, we wanted to address it, but past that, how was your round 3?
Round 3 was another rough one. I had Blue Farm. Next to me was Tyam. Then we had Kidden. Then we had Slicer. And Slicer almost ran away with that game. As Slicer does. It was real scary at first.
Yeah, how did you guys end up making sure Slicer didn't go away with it? Because usually people keep really questionable hands into Slicer piles. Slicer isn't a deck that normally you can, like, unless you are Rog Sai or some insane turbo strat, you're usually not outpacing what Slicer is wanting to do. And it only takes, 3 turn cycles? Yeah, if that for Slicer to even win the game. So what did you guys do to combat that whole situation?
Well, I saw a very early cast of Crom, and Crom's an excellent blocker for Slicer, as it turns out, whenever Slicer has no equipment or anything. I feel like the player kind of got unlucky with Slicer. He wasn't drawing lands and wasn't really drawing anything to get Slicer going. He saw, oh, I can get Slicer out really early, but didn't really do anything with that. So I got my Crom out. Tyam got Tyam out real early. And Kidden attempted to keep on getting Kidden out, but Slicer killed Kidden like 3 times during that during the game.
About that.
Yeah, he just
He
kept
was in
him.
my round 2.
Yeah.
Oh, you were talking about the event.
Yeah, he just kept Kidden off field, which fair on him. Kidden can run away with the game, but we just ended up being able to remove Slicer, and then he had a hard time getting Slicer back on the field.
Right.
He just kind of stalled out. But I didn't really get anywhere during that game. I just kept on drawing lands and wasn't drawing. I had Crom Timna out for a bit, just wasn't really getting anywhere. I am established itself real early and started getting scary. And Kinnan just eventually got a Seedborn Muse in. It got to a turn cycle where I thought Kinnan's going to win, Animar's going to win. Not Animar. I'm thinking of a different tournament. Tyam. It's all weird. And the Tyam player didn't have any points. So I was hoping he would win to prevent the Kinnan player from getting any more points and knocking me out of the final pod. Because I believe that was his placing in that game determined if I made it to the final pod. And I watched Tyam just pull absolutely crazy stuff off of his mill, and then return. He got everything he needed real quick off of my instep and just found it. But that was pretty much just the game. Tyam was just able to do the Tyam thing.
The Tyam thing. We love the Tyam thing.
It's a very cool deck.
Yeah, cool. That's a word.
It
I'll
is a
use.
cool deck.
Tyam.
I haven't seen that. I like it. It's
Yeah.
interesting. It's a
You
different.
fucking-
It's a different take on what CDH is about. So I like it. I enjoy it.
No, Tyam's all right. He does something that I think a lot of decks in the meta currently are lacking, and that's abusing not having to use the stack. So this is something I've kind of talked about a lot, where I think the best decks are the ones that are able to play like one spell a turn, accrue value, and not have to do anything other than what already existing on the board. Turns out if you don't use the stack, people can't interact with you because people don't run stifle effects, people don't run a whole lot of removal, and you kind of just get to do your own thing.
Right. So, obviously, you made the top pod. Talk us through how that game went, because from the spectator point of view, it looked like a slog.
It absolutely was a slog. My blue farm build is a bit more grindier. I know some of them build just to get the Adnos out real quick and win. I really like the smothering Tithe stuff and just going slower and then eventually just assembling enough value pieces to win.
Right.
That's how I enjoy playing it. And I got an early Rhystic Study, the next turn followed by a Smothering Tithe. I had a turn 1 Dauntless Dismantler, pretty much keeping Corval down for most of the game. The players had was a Corvold, we had another blue farm, we had a Shorkai, and then I was on blue farm as well. But Shorkai got Shorkai down early. Corvold attempted to do the Witherbloom Chain of Smog real early, but I think it was turn 3 he attempted it, and he put Witherbloom down turn 2. We were under whatever the Archon of the Rule of Law Archon.
Archon of Emeria.
Archon of Emeria, yeah. We were under that from turn 2. So it just turned into swinging Croms and Timnas, drawing cards of Shorkai, drawing cards off of Rhystic Study. I drew Ranger Captain thinking, oh, I'll just have this around for whenever someone wins or attempts to win. And T-Bone was in the 5-bot. He was scared of it because he thought I was going to win, but I only had Thassa's Oracle in my hand. But whatever would I do?
Only half of my A plus B.
But I forget whatever someone played, they drew me a Vampiric Tutor. So I thought, this is it.
This is
This is it. Then the other blue farm played Phantasmal Image, making another Ranger Captain. So I had on the instep, I targeted it with a Psych Rift to just get rid of it, and went to my turn, cracked Ranger Captain, and I was just hoping it would get through and that no one held a silence. Blue Farm got rid of their silence under a Chromox, and I couldn't guarantee that Shorkai had it, but Shorkai had the silence. So I thought, oh, that's rough. So I just pretty much just passed the turn there and just waited for my shot again. I drew a Naveen's Reclamation, and earlier in the game I discarded an Underworld Breach because we were still under the Archon of Miriam. I thought, there's no way I can go for it. And at this rate, Archon had been removed, and we were just slogging it out. And I believe it got back to my turn. I had a Born Upon a Wind in hand, and the turn before my turn, I went Shorkai played Humility, and that kind of just messed me all up. Just trying to figure out how to remove it, but with the Savine's Wreck, I was able to get back my Underworld Breach and just start. I had Brain Freeze in hand to start doing the Underworld Breach stuff. I had enough mana to really start it, and had a counter war. Was able to get on the other side of that, and eventually just bounced everything with an overloaded Psych Rift, and that was I was going to do. The other opponents scooped to there because they knew how it was going to turn out, and they had no more interaction.
Well,
and I had win on board.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it was
So
quite the tournament.
that was the tournament. I only played 2 rounds. So my second round, I ended up losing to the Kennen player that you played 3rd round, Matt.
Yeah.
But I had a really good win attempt on the stack. I thought my win attempt was very well timed in that game too. He got a lucky flip into a Thorn Mammoth to remove my Dockside in response to my Temur Sabertooth, which is like, okay.
I saw that. That was rough.
I mean, it
That
happens,
game was
right?
fun to watch.
It was a cool game. Like, River watched the entire game. It was an enjoyable game. We were in a 3-man pod. It was Najila, me, and then Kennen. And, Najila was just, they tried to win with Thoracle. I kept a hand that was, like, literally wall-to-wall interaction, and then a Neoform. I kept, like, 5 counterspells, a land, and a Neoform as my opener.
It was wild. It's funny because, like, Anthony, the Najila pilot, when he went for it, I don't blame him for going for it. Everyone is tapped out. You know, it seems like the opportunity. I always have this thing with, like, if you're the first person to put a win attempt on the stack, usually you're not the person who's winning the game, because you're going to eat a lot of interaction if you play against, like, smarter players, because, like, some people will just keep, you know, interactive hands if they aren't going to mull down super, right? And he went for it and got, and, like, again, I don't blame him for doing it, but it was so, the moment he put that on the stack, and Morgan, because I don't know if Morgan knows this, Morgan has a tell whether or not he has anything or not, where if somebody goes to put a win attempt on the stack, and you look at Morgan and he seems completely not worried, you're fucked. You should not have put that win attempt on the stack. He's gonna stop. Every fucking time. Every game I've played against you, or I've watched, like, you play, it's that. It's literally like, because if you know somebody has it, you're, like, ready to scoop. You're like, yeah, I've got it. Because you'll, like, do this thing where you shrug your shoulders and you'll be like, nah, I ain't got it. And the moment you didn't do that, and you looked at your hand, looked at historical, and goes, yeah, that resolves, I was like, Anthony got. That was a fun game, though. I feel like that game was almost any game to win. Anthony's variant is pretty unique. He is still on Breach and, like, the Oracle stuff, but he's leaning more towards the present win, like, present Najila, present thing that wins with Najila, win the game type of strat.
Mm-hmm.
And usually it's cards that aren't too menacing. Like, sure, if I play out my Druid's Repository before my Najeela,
Like he did that
Like-
game.
yeah, like he did that game, are you gonna counter it? Probably not,
He
because
literally fucking. He goes, I don't have the thing that whips with the Jill in my head. I was like, it's on the board. It's right there. I see it.
yeah, it was really funny. But yeah, I'm really liking the way he's going with his deck. I'm hoping he goes a little further, with, like cutting Breach, because I don't think that deck can Breach. But yeah, that pod was so fun to watch. I had a good time. Obviously, I didn't play, but like acting like I had responses to people's spells was fun, even though I wasn't playing. But I mean, it was a good time. The tournament overall was really fun with
Everyone
the friends
there
we
was
had.
just chill. It's like that every time we play with the larger group around Indiana. It's everyone super chill.
Yeah.
No one gets too butthurt about things most of the time.
I feel like we definitely need to get together more as a larger group because our groups
Right.
need to interact more. One, definitely for the growth of the format in general, but two, also for testing because like
Right.
we're obviously the ones that go to these tournaments the most. So I think it would be really fun and definitely something we can shoot for. We had some questions for you, Matt.
All right.
Outside of just the way your tournament went, I'll let Morgan ask some questions because I only really have one question. So
Yeah, so, I mean, we all obviously play a lot, together a lot, but how did you prepare for the event beforehand? I guess events, because you also won last weekend. Like, how'd you get that deck ready? What really went into the process of making your deck?
Well, when deciding to play Blue Farm, for a while, I was on Talion, and Talion's a fun deck. I won a Tropical Island at the same place last year with Talion. The first time I sleeved Talion together that night, went to the tournament the next day, and did really well. I played Talion for a while, and I thought, man, I think this deck would be really fun if it had red in it. So I tried Crom Tevish, and I played that deck for a bit. Thought, man, this deck would be really good if it had white in it. And so I just decided to jump on Blue Farm because I've been dancing around those colors anyways, and never really committed to Blue Farm, and it's the style of gameplay I like, accumulating a lot of resources and then winning.
That is the best way to play the game. It's very fun. Yes.
It is very fun. And so it was about a week and a half ago I decided, you know what? Go take Crom Tevish apart and just get the cards for Blue Farm ready, and I went into it, and I had my own thoughts about it because I know a lot of people don't like things like Smothering Tithe or Shieldred in their
Ugh,
Blue Farm
Shieldred,
lists.
it's so annoying.
I
who
love
doesn't
Shieldred.
like those? Okay, what?
Smothering Tide, pretty normie included at this point. Shieldred is a little
guess so.
spicy. For Blue Farm, it's a little spicy.
So I think there is a disconnect here, though. People keep calling Blue Farm Blue. The current iteration of Blue Farm is not Blue Farm.
You're right. It's Sans White.
yeah.
It's Sans Green Control, right?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It is Sans Green Control at this point. It is basically almost back to the old Opus style that originated with Timnacrom. So, like, I really love Shieldred, and just because, like, draw effect, like punishing draw effects, are so good.
Absolutely.
But in this format specifically. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I won the tournament
Don't act
last.
like Shieldred isn't warping every single format in the game. Wait a second.
Okay, hold on. I said format. I meant in this current meta, Shieldred is a really
Okay,
good card.
that's fair. That's
Yeah,
fair.
I didn't mean to say format. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree on draw effects, just punishing draws. I think I won the Scrubland tournament off the back of just Smothering Tithe alone. Because I was playing against Zerzoff, the Chaos Rider, and he was too afraid to swing at anybody because he was afraid to give me too many treasures. And that really allowed me just to run away with the game at that point.
I played Cody at that event.
It was a interesting event.
It was. No, so you decided to build the deck about a week and a half before your first event with it.
Yeah.
What do you think you did correctly at this event? Like, what were some of your misplays? What do you think you could do better next time?
I really need to learn how Rhystic Study works, apparently, because I've made the same mistake twice about mess. I get to the situation where I'm just in my head so much, and I think I'm responding to a cast, and I automatically, every time someone asks about it, whenever a Rhystic Study triggers there, I never want to miss it. I'm focused on getting my triggers. I say, are you going to pay for it? I think, okay, I'm going to respond to this spell too. And I do it all at once. And usually the trigger happens first in my mind. And so I try to resolve the trigger first. It's like, oh, I get a card on top. And it's a big old mess.
A good way to fix that, this is a common mistake a lot of people make, so don't feel bad, is whenever you do Rhystic Studies, you always ask, you don't ask, are you paying the one? You always say, Rhystic Study trigger.
Correct. Yeah,
that way, yeah.
That's
that
the way
way
I
you
need to
know.
pivot to. I'm just, we say it all the time in our play group. Pay the one, pay the one, pay the one, and we'll bug each other about it the whole time, and it's just a bad habit of mine at this rate.
It happens. You'll grow out of it, trust. It's literally like every CDH player's bane is they do the same thing. Oh, are you paying the one? Cool, I'm going to respond with, and it's like, well, hold on.
Well, you
You
can't.
can't do that.
Yeah, you can't do that.
But I think that was... I really think I played well. I think in some games I could have mulliganed better. I'm still getting used to the deck and getting the mulligans. I've talked to Morgan about this. He thinks I evaluate a turn 1 Crom too much.
I do.
Or I'm really evaluating it too high. Maybe not. I'm winning tournaments with it, but...
That's fair. That's fair.
God.
Okay, Matt.
But no, I agree.
Shit.
I will see a hand where I think, okay, this is a turn 1 Crom. Nothing else. I can get incidental card advantage because that's how I see it. People, if I'm early enough in the turn cycle, I think, okay, maybe I can draw 2 or 3 cards off of just this Crom, and sometimes it happens, sometimes it doesn't. But I just evaluate. That's the way I evaluate it, and I just think I can just get value here. And turn 2 Tymna, maybe start swinging.
I get punished by turn 1 Crom too often.
I don't.
I don't know why. I don't know how. Like when I play turn 1 Crom, it's like Gilded Drake, removal spell, you're out of the game. And then Matt does it, it's like, oh, he just gets sit there and draw 5 cards. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, I think it's also dependent on pod composition and stuff as well.
That's fair.
I also don't value early. I know Morgan and I have had this conversation about blue, where I actually think like playing against blue farm is actually super easy in my opinion, and it's just people don't do it properly. Like turn 1 Crom into turn 2 Tymna is really fucking good. In fact, if both your draw engines are online, play it. But like the weakest part of your game plan should be your commanders.
Right.
Most of the time, you should be focused on what your opening hand looks like for value engine, early one ring, mystic, heuristic, stuff like that to accrue advantage into then getting out from a Tymna.
Yeah.
But it also depends on like the type of opponent you're playing into. Even if you're playing into responsible players, most of the time I don't actually think Crom gets removed enough because people don't value the passive ability of Crom. I think in people's minds, a Crom draw is different than a Mystic or Heuristic draw when it's not. So like, sorry, go ahead.
No, I completely agree. You see a Mystic, you think, oh, it's going to slow down my game plan so much.
Mm-hmm.
But it can, but you can just wait that out typically. But a Crom is just, it sits there, it deals 4 damage a turn, it flies around.
It flies around.
And I think Matt is kind of taking advantage of something that we've been seeing a lot of in the format currently, which is the lack of like on-board interaction. People don't run enough effects that remove creatures. Not only do people not run enough effects that like remove creatures, people aren't playing responsibly around something like Crom. A lot of times people will be like, they'll have land, Soul Ring, Signet, right? And
Yeah.
so a Crom will be on field and they'll go land, Soul Ring, Signet. But they don't need to cast the Signet. Their turn 2 isn't so incredible that they need to be giving that player you shouldn't be giving your opponents free card advantage. But people are doing it anyways because they think that they have to progress their game plan, which is why I'll have a lot of conversations in pods with people where I'll tell people like, hey, the moment I see a Mystic Remora, are we feeding this Mystic Remora? And if a player tells me I don't know, then I'm feeding the Mystic Remora because I can't play from behind. And if like the table starts to agree to like, yeah, we'll just play one spell each turn. It's whatever. Here's my land. Here's my Jeweled Lotus. I can cast my Najeela next turn. Or whatever. I think Crom looks worse and worse, but until people start playing around the Crom effect like they do, Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora, I think you can get away with a lot of that stuff. And I think the way, with Matt, especially being newer to the deck, people aren't going to value probably Matt's ability with that deck as highly as they value yours, Morgan, because having seen you play the deck for as long as you did, I think people have a lot more, and maybe more than they need to, respect for you behind that deck than they would somebody like Matt, who's...
I'm just one of the best to ever do it. It's okay. Don't let my
Yeah,
road the
no, I
bill tell
agree.
you anything different. I'm the best to ever do it. Okay, Matt. So, you identify that your mulligans are part of your issue, right? I guess with the deck, you're not comfortable mulliganing yet. How are you going to improve on that? Are you just going to mulligan more? Going to do test hands?
Well, one of the things I was doing during the tournament was I did go down a couple more to see what I would like, and I think one of the things, like the final pod, I think I did it the best. I think I mulliganed down to 6, and I kept a hand that was a turn 2 Rhystic, turn 3 Smothering Tithe. Turn one Dauntless, turn 2 Rhystic, turn 3 Smothering Tithe, and I 100% think that's what allowed me to win the game. Is I don't think I ever cast Crom or Tim. No, I cast Timna. I don't think I ever cast Crom that game. And I don't know if that hurt me in the long run. There was a Draenith out at one point, and I could never really get Crom out. But I never really needed Crom, and the other value engines I was able to establish early on really let me go away with the game a lot easier than if I just had a Crom out instead of a Smothering Tithe, because that Smothering Tithe made me at least 30 mana that game, and that just allowed me to explode.
Yeah, that's... Smothering Tide's a good card.
I think so, but yeah, I need to do some test hands with it. I need to play more of the deck. I think I probably have less than 15 games on this deck so far. I probably in the tournament got to double digits. I need to play the deck more. I really like playing Control. It's one of the ways I have the most fun playing the game is just having the answer to everything.
Oh, yeah.
And it feels immaculate. But
you know
I think I
agree
need...
with you.
Oh, absolutely.
Same. Have I introduced you to Teferi?
No, not once. But I really do think I just need more practice on the deck. Start making some changes. One change I'm already thinking about is Delaney. I had one game where it mattered that I felt like I could not have won without Delaney out. But other times I have Delaney and it feels like a win more card. That's what I've heard from people online, that Delaney's just win more. It's not, because I know a lot of people spec'd on it whenever it came out, and there's a reason why it was like a $40 card for a while.
Yeah.
But
I spec'd on it. I have a cool one.
you do have a cool one.
She is definitely win more, but I think in Najeela specifically, she's really good in decks that can utilize her well. Like one of my favorite control decks that I might proxy up soon, or like make a list, buy it off NPC, test around, is Malcolm Timna.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think is like that is the perfect place for that. You're making 2 treasures a turn, or drawing at minimum 2 cards a turn, or even more. All this stuff. It actually opens you really weird cards that you otherwise would run as other value engines, because you have like Dark Confidant and stuff like that. There's not that I'm saying that card's great, but having the ability to, in a deck that you don't have an ad nauseam or really care about your life total, definitely opens up so many avenues, so many different like things that I think she is so good. But again, in like Blue Farm, it feels really good when you double up on your upside trigger, but like if you're ever in a position to pay 3 mana, untap, pay 2 mana to double up on your treasure, count, and your opponents aren't answering the board at all, you're kind of already in a position to win anyways.
Right. That's how I'm kind of looking at the card itself. I do have some things that other than just I have Timna, I have Bowmasters, I have a couple things that do help, that definitely does help, but it's I don't know if it's going to make the cut. I'm trying Saracen it out. I've seen several decks run that. It feels good when it works. It feels like a dead card in hand when it doesn't. But then one card that Morgan's, I don't think you're as high on as I am, is Born Upon the Wind.
I'm not.
It single-handedly allowed me to win that game, and if I didn't have it, I wouldn't be able to do the whole reach loop at instant speed over top of counter spells.
That's fair.
But I think it's an amazing card, but I know some people aren't as high on it, and I'm trying to evaluate it better. I'm trying to make it not a pet card, and try to make choices that just going to help the deck instead of hold it back.
I think Born Upon a Wind is really good in decks that can run Silence, which Blue Farm is. But people have they've almost given it the same prestige as a Final Fortune, when it's not quite as good in my opinion. It gets good, but it's not great. It gets an option, right? I respect that Rockside plays it so they can have more windows. I respect when decks that have a silence can do it, plays it, because when they can silence and then Born Upon a Wind when it's empty, it's very powerful. But not every deck needs to be on that card. It's definitely not another staple, like a must run,
I'm kind of of both opinions here. So my philosophy generally stems from how much of a mana investment is the thing that I'm always looking to do, and you always have to add mana onto win lines with cards like Born Upon the Wind. Whereas you don't have to do that with Final Fortune. However, downside of Final Fortune is
you lose.
I'm never countering. Yeah, I'm never countering your Final Fortune. I'm letting you untap, and if I have anything, you lose the game. That is awesome for me. Born Upon the Wind isn't like that. It's a very low cost, 2 mana, even easier to cast than Final Fortune, because you only need 1 blue and 1 colorless. Replaces itself, which is super relevant, but you do still have to add 2 mana onto whatever it is you're doing. So Born Upon the Wind is a card that scales really hard into the game, and I think is really good in a mid-range meta that we're in for decks to use as a pivot point where, oh, this is happening on the stack, I've kind of sat and done nothing. Yeah, with your, Thassa's ETB on the stack and kind of all the interaction gone, here's a Born Upon the Wind, all the mana I've accumulated, cards in hand, I get to win the game. But then there's instances where Born Upon the Wind probably doesn't help you as much as you would like it to, because most of what your interaction looks like is already instant speed. It has to be. So if you're ever in a situation where you just have Born Upon the Wind but don't have a wind in hand, paying 2 mana to just draw a card, unless that top card you're drawing happens to be your win condition or happens to be something that's really helping the game, especially now that like wheels and stuff aren't being ran. I think it's like a give and take. I've been feeling like I've been wanting to test it though. There's been some games I've played in Teferi recently where I'm like, man, I could just not win the game because my deck can't win at instant speed. Well, it can't win the game. It won't ever say I win the game. But there have been some games where I've played where I'm like, man, if I had Born Upon the Wind after like making infinite mana here and drawing my deck, I could set myself up to where my opponents have no cards in hand and no permanents on the board, and then pass to me and I win. But then, like, again, if I'm ever in that position, I should be okay with just untapping and winning anyways. So it's weird. It's definitely one of those cards that I would say keep testing. Make sure that like it is something you want, but also think about in situations where, especially for a control deck, in situations where you're looking at not trying to win the game and somebody else has like a win attempt and all you have is Born Upon the Wind in hand, or like Born Upon the Wind and maybe a card in hand to interact. Try and like record your moments of, okay, Born Upon the Wind helped me win this game. Like Born Upon the Wind like didn't help me do anything when this person put stack.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to do. Obviously, in the final pod, it allowed me to get there. I think I had another situation in the last tournament I went to where I ended up having a Ranger Captain out, and I had Born Upon the Wind in hand, and I either had Tainted Pact or Thassa's Oracle in hand. I was close to a win attempt, and someone was going to go for a win, and I just cracked the Ranger Captain to stop them. And at that point, I thought, this is a perfect opportunity for me to just attempt it. It'd been several turns. I drew a lot of cards. I had plenty of mana. If I drew a single tutor, I could go for it and win. But unfortunately, it didn't happen. But I passed Born Upon the Wind just thinking, maybe I will get something here. And it didn't work out. And I've had a couple situations where, yes, it's worked out, or no, it hasn't worked out, but I don't know if I haven't tested the deck enough to know yet, I don't feel. So, it's just figuring things out still. The deck's in its awkward stages for me.
That's fair. Okay.
I got a question.
No,
Go
River's got a
ahead,
question.
Oh, too late.
What?
I was going to ask my favorite question that I want to start asking people when we interview them is a break away from your tournament. What is like your CEDH hot? Like, what is something that you feel like either players are doing wrong, are doing correct, but other players think are wrong? Like, what's something about CEDH that you think isn't as popular of a take that you have?
Oh, that's a tough one. I'm really, like, especially I think it's evident in this deck, I am higher on less conventional things. Like, I run the Ad Nauseam in this deck, and my Ad Nauseam curve, I think, is probably not the best. I don't like some of the optimizations people make to certain decks. Like, some of them, obviously, they need it. But I do think some cards that people are skipping on because it's not falling into my curve, or it might be a little bit too expensive. I feel like my hot take is people are trying to win too quickly, and especially right now in a fast, not fast, they're trying to go fast in a mid-range meta. I think people need to evaluate cards differently. There's some cards that people are on that it's hard to really put my thoughts about this together because I'm playing Blue Farm. It's the quintessential deck right now, I feel like, but I feel like there's a lot of people are not wanting to play cards because they like it. Oh, it's a win more card, or it doesn't. They might not feel like it does enough, or it's too slow or too expensive, or it doesn't work in certain situations. Like I know River, you love Trick Bind. I love Trick Bind.
Such a good card.
But people see it and this. If I need a counterspell, this doesn't work here. Yes, but it stops Thassa's Oracle, the most popular win con. It just does so much, and I think people don't evaluate cards enough, or they just are so hyper fixated on the most optimal thing that they think, or what a larger community thinks is correct, and are not looking at cards that may end up working. I think Nate's deck is a perfect example of that. We all in our play group have, I would say, very strong decks, and his fringe tier deck is able to destroy us consistently because
bro. That card, his deck is.
And it's just a mono red devil tribal deck, pretty much. I think that's the devil tribal isn't a commander, but all it does is synergize with his commander, and he doesn't run the most optimal cards in it, but it allows him to specifically attack our meta, and we play a lot of the most popular decks out there, and
yeah,
I would like to start seeing more of that, honestly. I think that has a real...
Just like brewing being popular, or...
Brewing's part of it,
So-
but testing out new things instead of always saying, this list is the quintessential list, you need to follow this or your list is...
Oh, I'm so glad you brought this up. This is actually something I've wanted to talk about for a while.
Mhm.
I'm not going to go like deep into it, but essentially, there's been this thing in the community where Anthony and I have talked about, the Nijila player, you guys know.
Yeah.
We have talked about not running Breach Arthas' Oracle in Nijila. Because the deck, in my opinion, like Sisay, doesn't need those cards to be a good deck. And in fact, one of the things that I think players are overlooking currently is, in all of my takes I'm going to make about this are going to be very oriented to tournament play. When it comes to tournament play, the top 3 most anticipated cards that are going to go on the stack that you have to answer are Thassa's Oracle, Ad Nauseam, and Underworld Breach. These cards just say, literally, I win the game. And so, if you are playing cards in your deck that, win the game, they're really good if they resolve and do it. But they're also cards that are very high red flag for your opponents, and it puts your opponents in very easy decisions to make. If you put an Ad Nauseam on the stack, you counter it. If you put an Underworld Breach on the stack, you counter it. If you put the Demonic Consultation after the Thassa's Oracle goes onto the stack, you counter it. Like, these aren't cards that you can let resolve. Doesn't matter what your opponents say, these are not cards that should be resolving. And in a meta where you can make the decision harder for your opponent, where you go, hey, instead of, Underworld Breach, I'm going to run War Leader's Chant, which is a new thing. I know Memo's been testing, where he's off the Underworld Breach package, but he's on War Leader's Chant, the new Boros enchantment that says, when a creature enters the battlefield, deal 1 damage to each opponent.
War Leader's Call.
War Leader's Call, my bad.
No,
And it's an Anthem effect. It gives all your creatures +1/+1. It's really good. Turning your 1/1s into 2/2s is really great. It's also a card that, yes, should people probably respond to it? Maybe. But am I going to respond to War Leader's Call, which isn't winning the game, is going to incrementally gain them such an advantage that, it does. It cuts basically in half the amount of Nijila swings they need, which is, I think, 3 instead of 6 at that point. Or am I going to answer the player who is untapping and probably going to be casting a game-winning spell? And this is, I think, something the broader community is struggling, where some of the best pilots right now, Satellite, Ian, Freedom, Memo, they're all really good about testing out different things, which is why I think they are such great players. But I think the community at large has kind of fallen into this line of like, oh, well, if like the best players aren't playing it and it's not in a deck that's winning tournaments or it's not this, then like it can't be good. But I actually agree with you. I think that like so many people are way too high on just trying to win the game. I want cards that say I win the game. I want cards that get me to my win. And you should be on that stuff. No one's saying you shouldn't. But I think I agree with you in the fact that like a lot of cards do just get overlooked. Where one of the cards that I think is so good right now, people I know in the tournament scene are running, but in the broader CDH community aren't, are cards like Tishana's Tidebender, which is a card that just says your One Ring doesn't work, your Corvold doesn't work, your whatever doesn't work. It's a card I play in Tassiger. Really, really, really like the card. I've actually started taking out, like, I used to think, oh, I have to run Grafdigger's Cage, Curse Totem into Fairy, right? Like, I have to be on these effects that don't hurt me, but instead, I've actually been exploring what interaction can I run instead. Instead of having something on the board that's removed, why don't I just run something that interacts with the thing they're wanting to do instead of preventing them from doing the thing and then accruing value under, right? Until they need to remove it. I think that's like a big thing people aren't doing is people don't test enough. They think that what they're doing is correct because it works within an event. And then they'll go to these events, and I know a lot of people, again, I'm not going to say Thassa's Oracle is a bad card. I think there are decks that should run combo, obviously. But a lot of times people think that, like, oh, well, this deck's winning consistently, and it's on Breach, it's on Thassa's Oracle, but we don't have the data behind, like, any of the wins. We don't know what won that player the game. We don't know what spells were resolving. We don't know, like, what decisions were made. I remember people were shitting on me for a while in the community because I kept saying Najeela didn't need Ad Nauseam. And a Najeela, won a tournament. They had two Najeelas in the finals, and both of them were on Ad Nauseam. So clearly Ad Nauseam's a good card, right? Well, you go back and watch their games, none of them casted Ad Nauseam, like, ever. And now a lot of Najeela pilots are coming off of Ad Nauseam because it's a card that they just aren't able to resolve. Why would I play Ad Naus when instead I can just play another card that will resolve and is also going to win me the game, but people don't realize it.
Yeah, that's one of my biggest takes. My Sisay Weatherlight Captain deck is kind of a culmination of my philosophy about that. We were at Lotus Con. I was on the Planeswalker lines, and I almost made it to the top 32 in Lotus Con. I think
40,
it was
top 40.
Top 40. I was almost there. I was like just right below it, and we were back in the hotel room. Me, Morgan, and Richard were there. We were talking. I said, I do not like the Planeswalker lines in Sisay. It feels bad, and it feels too slow to me. So we brewed, and I brewed myself, and I came to a Sisay list, which I tore you guys up for a while on that until you decide to mulligan to counter me all the time.
What you get to do?
But yeah, I just went off the Planeswalkers lines, and I just went for complete instant speed lines, and then added a ton of silver bullets into the deck that a lot of people might not run in Sisay. And now I love my Sisay list. I wish I could play it more, but unfortunately, every time I play it, well, I might be able to play it now because you're not on Blue Farm anymore, and you might not have all the stuff in it to stop it anymore. But
maybe not. I don't know what Opera still.
Well, I'm testing Twin Shot Sniper for stuff like that. I think that's a very strong card that a Rogside player played it and did well in a tournament. I was looking at tournament results, and I saw Twin Shot Sniper. And I thought, why am I not playing this card in Sisay? It's just It's 3 colorless, 1 red, and when it enters the battlefield, it deals 2 damage to any target. But you can channel it for 1 in a red, and it'll deal 2 damage to any target. It gets rid of Grand Abolisher. It gets rid of Opposition Agent. It just does so much that when on certain places where you could interact like any of the channel stuff, why we run Beseiju, why we run Otawara, it was kind of the same space for me. I was saying, why am I not running this in decks? Because it's a 4-drop. Yeah, it can be dead sometimes. But whenever I've had it, it's never really felt bad. It can be, I don't want the blue farm player to be drawing 3 cards this turn, or if they have dealing out maybe 6. I'm just going to twin shot sniper your Tymna. That's gone. It's just there's a lot of new things that have existed. The twin shot sniper came out in Neon Dynasty, and I think it got slept on for a long time. And when I saw it being played, I thought that's an amazing card that not a lot of people's on.
Yeah, I think a lot of those types of effect too have also been slept on. There's 2 cards, one that I believe came out in Neon Dynasty that I really like. One of my buddies actually pointed it out to me. They were playing it in a list, and I was like, why am I not running this? Moonsilver Crab is, 2 and a blue, discard, channel, counter target spell or activated ability unless they're activated or triggered ability unless that player pays 3. So, it's a 3 mana leak, but also for triggered abilities. It works underneath Grand Abolisher and silence effects. Nimble Obstructionist, another card that I like running. Same thing, except it doesn't counter spell, but any way to interact with silence effects or interact underneath silence effects is so prevalent. I think best cards in CDH right now is Grand Abolisher effects. The ability to play a turn 2 Grand Abolisher, pass your turn, knowing, depending on pod composition, that it's going to come back to you, and then presenting a win because your opponents obviously they don't have interaction, or they don't have interaction deal with you, on the stat because they can't, and unless they just have a channel effect, what is it? Because the 2 biggest channel effects are Otawara and Beseiju. Those are the 2 most played in our format, and most of the time, because of how much Otawara costs, it's almost always a land for people, which means Beseiju is really the only spell you have to have if it's a breach line, and if it's not a breach line and it's Thassa's Oracle, you lose. And I think that, a lot of people just won't test for that stuff because they just chalk it up to I did nothing wrong, I just couldn't have expected it. I know Morgan's talked about this before, where he doesn't like doing that, where there is no I just had no agency. No. You do have agency. You have to know when it matters or when a card would have mattered for your deck, which is why my Tasker list looks the way it does. Because I'm not on Hullbreaker Horror, and all the testing I did with that deck, and it's same with Teferi now. I'm off Hullbreaker Horror because if I'm mana dumping that much mana into a Hullbreaker Horror, it feels bad, and I can't win after doing it, most of the time. And then if I'm ever potting and I run Hullbreaker Horror, my opponents are just never letting my pod stuff resolve ever. It's all getting countered. But if you've played against me before, we can let his Neoform resolve. He's just grabbing Damian, or he's just grabbing Nezahal, which those cards are still equally, if not more so, scary than a Hullbreaker, but are less scary in the short term, whereas Hullbreaker Horror is really scary in the short term. And with Teferi, a lot of times it's cast Teferi, cast Hullbreaker Horror. The next spell I cast is getting Mindbreak trapped. So unless I also have Hullbreaker Horror plus interaction plus mana ability plus already the mana rock play to do the thing, it's usually just not ever working out, and I just would rather not run it. But people have told me you're just bad Hullbreaker. Am I? Because it hasn't affected my win percentage. In fact, I win more games now that I'm on the Teferi variant I'm on than I was when I was on the Hullbreaker and the I'm scared of opposition agent and Orcish Bowmaster deck that I was on. You know, like I quit being scared of some cards, and I've started winning more games because I've learned that like OBM's only scared or is only scary if I'm drawing more than 30 cards with, you know, a pool from tomorrow. But if I'm not drawing more than 30 cards, which I shouldn't, I'm winning the game getting 30 cards. I'll take 30 to the face. That doesn't matter.
Right. I don't know. It's been a big thing for me as of late because not that my thoughts have necessarily changed on that, but I think I've gotten more comfortable with losing when my opponents have interaction, and I like have to attempt to win. Like it's like okay, like in my game with Matt, where I was the first round of the tournament we just played in, where I was like, I think I had to go there, and I just had to like gamble on the fact that no one had interaction because I was dead on board. Like I was looking for my spot the entire game, and there might have been a better spot for me to go, but I didn't have any lands ever, and I never had the creatures to like convoke Court of Calling and be able to cast Tainted Pact. So it was rough when I just saw that I was out of board and I had to go. I've gotten more comfortable with realizing that sometimes I do just have to be on the short end of the stick and I'm forced to act, and that's just part of the variance of the format. But also, I shouldn't just be fine with every game going, oh, I'm forced to act here, act.
Yeah.
And running face first into counter magic. There's a fine line that I've learned that I have to walk if I would like to continue to grow as a player, I think.
Yeah, and that fine line is, you know, playing Teferi. I got you. I understand.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah,
I'm
one
getting
thing.
closer and closer every day.
You keep cutting colors. Eventually, it's just gonna be my baby.
Yeah, one thing I've noticed you've been doing more and more, Morgan, is even if you have interaction in hand, you've been really high on priority bullying us recently.
Yes, I have.
It's been getting worse and worse, and even though I know you have something in hand, I've seen you
I don't
draw
always
it.
have something in hand when I do that, but
Sometimes you do.
sometimes I do.
Most of the time you do.
Most of the time I do.
And you just like, and your first in priority, you'll just, I don't care if we lose. Pass.
Yeah,
Like,
I do say that. I do not care. I do not care. Yeah, I think playing in so many tournaments has made it so I'm like, I don't care if one game ends in a loss. If I have to gamble that my opponents are going to interact, I'm going to do it sometimes. I don't do it all the time. But if I think that there's a really good chance that my opponent's holding interaction, like if I see both of my opponents have like 6 cards in hand and someone's trying to put like a win attempt on the stack, I'm like, I'll back them up. I'll pass priority. I'll back them up.
Yeah, one of the things I like doing is I will straight up tell them, I have interaction. I need a good faith effort from you guys before you spawn. Because I always explain that, like, I'm not going to dump my interaction just to lose to the next player. So if you guys are cool with this guy winning, they can fucking win. I'm not blowing interaction if you guys aren't blowing interaction. So I'll pass. And then it's actually worked out a lot for me recently, because then people are like, oh, you're convincing players to waste their interaction. And it's like, no, I'm convincing players to respond to the board, because it's not just my job. That's the one thing I've had, especially after the first tournament I met Morgan in, where, second, because you went to the Terre Haute one, where it was me, Richard, Morgan, and then there was the Emery player, and I had hell interaction in hand, but I didn't even need to spend it because Morgan also had interaction in hand. I never once passed priority because all I could see was Richard, who is in Gruul, having no interaction, obviously, and then because he was playing Menskin Boo at the time, and then Morgan, I knew they had open mana. I should have guessed that they had interaction. I just didn't. I just kept answering everything, so that by the time like I went to go for my win attempts, I like couldn't back them up and then Morgan was able to stop me because I just kept answering the Emery player, who was the last in seed order, and I was first in seed order. So that's something that I've had to learn
Is
as
that
well
when
as
you were
like
playing Ukima Kazur?
yes.
Ah, yes.
Yeah, that was a fun time. That deck, dude. That deck's still really good. I can't stand people running Delighted Halfling. That shit's ass.
What? Happy Hobbit's awesome.
Happy Hobbit's great in a deck that runs more than 2 legendary spells, both of which reside in your command zone that you're never casting unless you're winning the game.
That's fair.
I'd rather run Allosaurus Shepherd, which would have won me all of my games. But nope. Delighted Halfling. But yeah, that's I totally agree with what you're saying. I think there is, like you said, a fine line between knowing like when to go for it or when to not. I think one thing people need to understand is I love and hate that we call opportunities windows, because people are like, "Ooh, I'm gonna make my own window." It's like, okay, cool, that makes sense. You're gonna cut out a square, you're gonna put the thing inside of it, the glass, you're gonna make it where it can open, and then you're gonna go through it. Or like this window, it's open, and it's like, you have one in hand and one spell to protect it. That is not a guaranteed open window. That window could be fucking locked. You're not going through it if 2 of your opponents have interaction.
Or it's one of
You're fucked.
those. It's one of those like bathroom windows that's really small,
Mhm.
like at the top of a public restroom, you know, just so they have natural light, like you can just barely see out.
Yeah, and I think too often people think of windows as like, they're called windows of opportunity because windows can, right? But like not every window is open even though you can see through it. And I think a lot of players haven't grasped that concept entirely. Where that's actually something I think our players do really good on. You know, I think we do have a pretty good grasp of when we can or when we can't go for it, understanding when to present ourselves as a threat versus ourselves as a threat. Like, everyone knows this about me. I'm a very big talker in my games, and it helps me a lot, sure. But it's not because I'm like manipulating the players. It's because I don't like, one, I'm very confident, so people will listen, and 2, I don't lie, like at all. And so when I make a statement like when I cut a deal, when I'm like, hey, I'll be honest with you, we need to stop this player. If you stop this player, I'm not going to win on my turn. Even if I draw it, even if I have it in hand, I'm not going to fucking go for the win, because I don't want to lose here, and it would be shitty of me to go for the win if I force you to interact with it, because I have nothing. And then, you know, in our pickup game, I did that, and I showed I could have won the game. I chose not to, and passed. I ended up losing that game. You know, like,
Yep.
which I'm fine with doing. I'm fine with losing a game to like prove a point. Like, I don't ever want to be the player that's like, hey, we got to take care of this Najila player. And like, I don't blame people for doing this.
I
Not
do it.
shit talking. Yeah, I know plenty of people that play like this, where they'll, and I don't think that's bad. I'll just want to point that out. That's not bad. You know, obviously things need answered. You can cut players into certain things. The reason I don't do it is because it does help me a lot. I'll win a lot of games because when somebody goes to try and be like, Anthony does this. Shout out Anthony, who I keep talking about on the podcast. Where we'll play a game together, and he'll be like, "Oh, well, we have to," and I'll explain, "No, the fuck you don't," and here's why you don't have to, you know, interact with me. Like, this is how the game is playing out currently. This is how the game's going to play out. Don't listen to him. You're gonna waste resources on me. And then he'll sometimes get frustrated. He's like, "Oh, you convinced that player to focus me," and I'm like, "No. I redirected the correct attention to you because you were trying to make me seem like a threat, even though I wasn't, you know? Sure, I might have a bunch of, like, mana or whatever. And, like, let's say I have 2 cards in hand. Let's say I win. Or let's say, like, actually, in that specific game, it was, like, Reality Shift and another interactive spell. It's like, I even explained to the table, if I somehow win with these 2 cards in my hand, you guys suck. Because,
He
like,
did say that, fuck.
yeah, I have nothing. And if you want to get rid of my Teferi, stop what I'm turn, do it. Cool. but we lose if you do that. And, obviously the table listened to me. I think I did win that game, but that wasn't because of Vin. It was because of...
You top decked a very good
Yeah.
Ugin the Speed Dragon after we got killed by Najila.
Yeah, fucking Anthony forgot that I had a One Ring because my One Ring had 2 counters. He forgot that I still had protection because I had untapped and tapped it that turn. So it had 2 counters instead of 1. Basically tricked him into trying to kill the table. He didn't have a way to kill me without, the Najila line. Passes to my turn. I top deck Ugin the Spirit Dragon, make the mana. He also didn't hit Teferi, which was funny. And then cast Ugin, and I'm like, well, I hope you don't have a counter spell. He cast Intuition, and the cards I drew off the ring, I showed him a Swan Song. That's game. Like, there's
He
nothing
didn't have
else.
a counter spell left in his deck anyway.
Yeah, it's true.
You were just fucking around. But yeah. That was an
But yeah,
interesting game.
And those are just pickup games too. There's nothing to really take away from a lot of those, but there's definitely ways to play the game. I think that people are our play group specifically. I think it's getting really better at where the more we go to these types of tournaments, the more we're going to see this stuff, and the more we're going to be able to adjust. Which is why Matt's obviously made really good strides with the format. Morgan's made really good strides with the format. Nate being able to attack the format in a way that surprisingly currently aren't with Zurzov. And yeah, Matt, eventually people are going to have to adapt, and until they do, you're going to see a lot more wild stuff happen in this format because other people will adapt. Other people are getting tired of hearing, you can't do this, you can't do that. Well, they're going to start doing it, and when they start taking advantage of all these short-sighted ways that people are playing the game, we're going to see another shift, and hopefully it happens with... The deck I want to see come to the forefront is not Zurzov. It is another mono-red deck. I think mono-red Ogier is way better than it should be, and people just aren't.
Oh no, man. You haven't played against Zurzov the Chaos Rider yet.
Yeah, I have.
Have you?
You haven't played against it.
Yeah.
You haven't played
up
against
as
it in its current
was.
iteration. It has gotten a lot better.
We
Yeah,
watched
that-
this deck go from a negative win rate to just...
Like a
Turbo
50%.
We kept telling them this is bad. You're not... these cards are bad. You're just drawing people multiple cards and only getting one or two devils off of it. You're not valuing off of it. And he took that advice well. He made the cuts, made the decisions, and that...
His list is the first time I've seen a prison strategy work in CDH. Slicer is an aggro strategy. Zurzov is mono red prison.
Yeah, that's how Ogier is as well. It's just it's a card, they're both cards, one, they're mono, two, that present your opponents with really difficult to make decisions, where why the fuck would I answer this? This doesn't say he wins the game. Okay.
But
Because I'm gonna keep, because in their mind, I'd rather counter the thing that's gonna win the game. And then these players will get to sit back. I played against a guy who was brewing the Ogier deck, and the amount of times he would just have Eidolon of Great Revel on the field with me playing Teferi and me going, well, I'm not taking fucking 16 damage to cast these 4 spells. I think I'm just gonna pass. It does.
I'm just gonna pass.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna wait until I hopefully draw into something. Oh, I can't because he just dealt fucking 20 damage to me somehow? Okay, cool. Well, I'm gonna scoop.
Damn. If I see Ogier, I'm never letting Ogier resolve.
Literally don't. That's the way to beat that deck.
The way to beat Zurzov is just landing a Smothering Tithe. They'll never get through. That's what I learned.
I think he was too scared of the Smothering Tithe.
Oh, absolutely.
Tide is so good. People underestimate the value of the mana currently. Everyone's over prioritized the value of effects and have under prioritized the value of mana and other effects that grant you value that aren't.
Yeah, I agree. Well, kind of get us towards wrapping up. Is there anything else that you'd like to elaborate on that we didn't have a specific question regarding the tournament, Matt?
Not that I can think of currently.
Great. We are the best interviewers to ever do it.
There you go.
No, it was really cool having you on. I'm really glad that we actually got the guts to have someone on finally.
What do you mean got the guts? We could have had anyone on.
I don't know what you're saying. I don't know. I think we're going to start trying to highlight winners from our local scene, try to get their voices out there too. So this shouldn't be the last time this happens, but it was really fun. Thanks for coming on, Matt.
Yeah, hopefully I'll make you all tired of hearing me.
Oh,
You will, for sure, because I bet you're going to win the upcoming tournament that we have going on March 9th. That is called
the first annual Spring Showdown.
It is going to be hosted by Morgan and our friend Richard. Please come out to this event, because if you don't, well, you're already not going to stand a chance because I'm going to be. But if you don't get the chance to win $500 anyway. So
Yeah, first place prize is $500, and then second, third, and fourth will get $100. It's our first event. We're really excited to have people come out. We're trying to get a larger tournament feel going for some of the people who don't travel a lot. So we're trying to get it out there, trying to get some homies together, get a big group going. So we're really excited for it. We're really excited to have that coming up in a couple weeks. So yeah, I hope everyone comes and has a good time.
yeah, we're going to have to work on getting some flyers made.
I have flyers made.
We're going to bring them to events and not forget them at our house.
I did forget it at my house.
Not me over here calling out, the boys, but
No,
this event's gonna be
we definitely have learned some things with this event that will be used next time we host an event. Even if this one doesn't pop off super well, which we were hoping it does, but even if some things there's some snags, we're hoping to learn and just keep getting better, and then come back next time and hopefully not change up the rule set a bunch, but we're having a judge come out. It should be a good time. So we hope people can make it.
Yeah, I think it'll be a really good time. I'm looking forward to it. One, getting to hang out with all the boys. I'm gonna try and bring as many as I can. Per usual, I do my best to try and gather up players. It sucks that currently it feels like the CDH scene in Indiana is about middle of the pack to where it used to be like 6 months ago.
Right.
But I think we can definitely get back there. This is an event I'm really hoping looks good, because more events like this will be better in the long run. But it's going to take a lot of groundwork, and obviously we want to see everybody out there. You'll get to meet us. I'm so popular now, apparently, that I'm able to sign your cards. I'll do it. I'll sign your cards. We'll take photos together, ones with clothes on, maybe, and then it'll be a good time. I'm pretty excited. You're gonna see Matt. You're gonna lose to probably if you're in a pod with him. You're gonna see Richard, who's going to DQ you if you're in a pod with me.
He will DQ you. He's excited.
If you're slow playing, I'll have you DQ'd. Don't worry about it. No, it'll be a good time. I can't wait to just jam games, hang out with friends, and entries. What, $40?
$40 for a chance to win 500. We thought that was a pretty fair deal. So we plan on having 5 rounds of Swiss maximum. So
yeah,
it's not nothing too crazy. It'll be a one-dayer.
It'll be fun.
We're super hyped for it.
And we'll have the link to that in this episode.
In the description. And it's going to come out like today or tomorrow.
Hopefully.
Because you know what? I fixed the issues with the OBS, so now my things aren't getting corrupt.
Yeah, sorry about that, guys. We have been obviously not here for a bit. It's going to take us a few more weeks to put out some content. we did have a backlog that we could. But do we have any of those episodes?
Yeah, I have them. I think they're fine to upload. I didn't go through and check all of them, but I can just upload. I can upload this and then upload those as well.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. But we'll definitely get some stuff uploaded here soon. The goal is to get our content posted on some Discords. I've talked with some people about that. We just need to be a little consistent, which now that the issues are fixed, we'll actually have. We'll be able to. And we're also really bad at our own time to record. But we're going to do a lot better with that, so don't you guys worry. So, Matt, where can we find you?
Well, Columbus, Indiana, typically.
Whoa, don't dox yourself.
Oh no. Gonna be at the tournament on March 9th. We're talking about either next is the Lexington tournament or
I'm gonna be going out to Columbia instead.
Tennessee.
It's still up in the air.
Yeah, I know we were talking about going down to Columbia. Depending on how we feel yet, but those are two tournaments going on March 16th, I think.
Yep.
But yeah, I'll be at one of those.
You'll be at my tournament. You're the first one to sign up.
Yeah, after you bullied me into it.
Yeah, I had to bully you into doing it early.
I still haven't signed up.
Oh, man, come on.
Hey, I'm gonna. Don't you worry about it.
Look, I have more important things like putting laser eyes on all my cards.
Yeah. I recently just went through my Teferi deck and finally updated all of the printings to what I want to collect eventually. And without Time Twister, because I have it set to the Time Twister so it doesn't count towards money, the deck is $5,700. And that's not even with stuff being foiled. That's just with stuff within the art that I like.
Damn.
So...
Fairy decks don't need to be that expensive.
No. Without, if I did like original printings, this deck's like $3,700, I think.
Yeah,
Like the extra 2K is literally just printings. Like I really like the trippy One Ring, the Ixalan Mana Crypt. I love the inventions. They just look so cool. The Kaladesh ones.
Oh, absolutely.
So, like, obviously I like those. I love etched foiling cards. So, like, Jewel Lotus, Pull from Tomorrow, Mana Drain, stuff that can be that. And then just things that I like art-wise, which aren't even actually that expensive. Because I don't like foils. I really just like the art of cards. So, like, yeah, foiling doesn't matter to me, but yeah.
Okay. Well, we got to learn about River's preferences with his deck, and I think with that, that's the end of our episode. So I think we'll see you next time.
We will see you next time. Later, Gators.
See ya!